It's pleasure, absolute pleasure to see more than 250 people joining in for this webinar, and that clearly shows that more and more people are getting to know about this webinar, and more people are showing their interest to contribute and to hear from experts into this field. And today there are so many professors as well, those who are joining in from different institutes, which is a good thing for us because we really believe that professor can actually bring the change, as in when we talk about the safety culture or change in the safety culture in the institutions. So thanks a lot everyone for joining in. And before we begin, so I'll just quickly introduce Indian Road Safety Campaign. So Indian Road Safety Campaign is an initiative of Sol Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization, which is a 12-ATG CSR enabled not-for-profit organization working in the field of education and road safety as of now. And it was started by some students and alumni of IIT Delhi in the year 2017. And it's been more than 3 years we are working formally on road safety and education. And we started with this journey to safety webinar series 7 weeks back. As we can see, today is the seventh webinar, and we are fortunate to see two of the experts in this domain who have a brilliant expertise into vehicle safety standards with us speaking in this webinar today. And I would like to welcome our speakers as well. And so IRSC is an initiative of Sol Foundation, and we started in the year 2014 after a tragic road accident of some IIT Delhi students, in which some 4 students lost their life in a road crash. And that's how we started an organization just to raise awareness. And we never thought that we would grow up as an organization who would be holding a webinar today on this Sunday during this lockdown, and almost 300 people joined in this webinar. So we have been working with the support of various central governments, state governments, UN bodies, and international organizations. With the support of more than 5,000 institutions, we have been able to mobilize almost 40,000 students, volunteers in our journey of this last 5 years of the journey, which has been tremendous. In order, when we speak about bringing infrastructure changes and raising awareness and bringing some innovative solution and technical innovation. So the journey has been great, and we've also been awarded by central government, state government. We've been appreciated by Honorable President of India, Vice President of India, and Swedish Transport Minister, WHO, United Nations, and others. So as of now, if we talk about the current program, as of now we have recently taken up a project jointly with WHO as in Sol Foundation. So Intellify is the other arm of Sol Foundation, which is working on education. So they're working on education and how we can impart 21st century skills into kids. So as of now, we are jointly taken up a project with WHO, wherein we are working on developing a global status report on prevention of violence against children. This would be the first ever report for India. And globally, the report focuses on prevention of violence against children, and this is a global status report. So many of you who are into this road safety already know about global status report on road safety. So just like this, WHO also releases a report on other issues. It works on the WHO majorly works for the well-being or health of various vulnerable users, vulnerable society segment. And prevention of violence against children is one of the themes that we've taken up, wherein we are working on to develop a Indian perspective for the global status report in collaboration with WHO. And without any further delay, I'll just begin with the session. So today's session is on improving vehicle safety standards in India. And if we talk about speakers, so we have our all-time favorite, Mr. Giri.
So thank you very much for joining in for this Sunday on the webinar on Journey to Road Safety series. It's an extreme privilege to do this seventh series consecutively in the last 7 weeks of this lockdown. And I also got an opportunity to meet various people from various spectrum of expertise and sharing their own thought process and also experience and everything. So it's also really good to sit in the Sunday afternoon after lunch and then discussing about this topic when the entire world is talking about how many got infected, how many got coronavirus, is the nation lockdown, is it is open, and things like that. But it's also nice that we see close to 200 to 250 participants every week, which is quite difficult even to achieve when we do a conference in a hall. So it's also extremely important, as Dipanshu also introduced, that we had quite a variety of people who joined this conference or this webinar, starting from road safety experts to various transport agencies, the Ministry of Road Transport, OEMs, auto suppliers, CAM community, and also various professors and the student community joining us. So thank you very much. So without much ado, we will start our seminar with a short introduction. We have two eminent speakers today. Mr. A.V. Manikar, he is anything related to ARI webinar, anything related to ARI and homologation, vehicle testing, you name it, Manikar will have the knowledge on it. So today he is with us to share everything. So currently, I'll just give you a short introduction of Manikar sir. And he is working in the Deputy Director, Head of Safety Homologation and Passive Safety Labs at RI. He has close to 35 years of experience, mainly in automotive R&D and structural testing and safety reliability. And he is providing the senior leadership management program in ARI in crashworthiness, occupant safety, as well as component safety. He represents UNECE GRSP, Group on Passive Safety, so United Nations Economic Council of Forum. He chairs all the TED committees and also BIS committees and task force for later of draft protocols for Bharat New Car Assessment Program, which is exactly the Indian NCAP. And he's also head of the facility in Chakan, which is the passive testing facility which is available under the Government of India and the NATRAP initiative. Presented keynote papers in innovation in Government of China, Korea, and Sri Lanka. So he has a wide varieties of expertise. So let's welcome our panelist A.V. Manikar sir. So thank you very much for joining, sir.
Thank you, Giri, for the kind words.
Next,
not a big introduction required. Basically, I am breaking cars. Are you able to hear me, everybody?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Good afternoon, everybody. All the audience. I think on Sunday afternoon, all of them have gathered. I'm really surprised that a lot of student community also is there.
Okay, perfect. So meanwhile, I'll also introduce Mr. Rohit Nair, Head of Marketing from Chassis Division from Chakan. Welcome, Rohit, for being with us on this Sunday evening. And Rohit has worked with Bosch for more than a decade now, 10 years from now. And he is very well known for all the new products which is coming up as a safety. So anything on the technology front, you just ask it. Mr. Rohit is there. He is a BTech from Mechanical Engineering and MBA from Pune University. And currently he is the head of marketing for chassis at Bosch. So he also travels with me, and he's also a very good friend of mine. So any forums and many places we just talk, and we exchange. So generally, people say research and marketing will not go hand in hand, because marketing team always needs numbers and the business. Where research numbers always fights with, this is the fact, whether you want it or take it. But I never faced this problem with Rohit all these years. So he was always with us, and he understands the ground reality, and a guy who really knows exactly how the system works. And many more things. Looking forward from your side also, Rohit, welcome to this panel today. And the next 45 minutes to 1 hour, we will just discuss about various topics. What are two eminent panelists, Manikar sir with the head of homologation and Rohit with introducing new topics of safety systems for India. So this is a great combination. And also people do keep logging in all your questions. So we'll have good amount of time today because we have only two panelists, and we'll take the question answer session more forward. Welcome, Rohit.
Thanks a lot, Giri, for a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. So now what we do is, like, we will just take around 5 to 10 minutes slot from each of the expertise. So you can just narrate what is your experience in the last 35 years, Manikar sir, and also last 10 years from Rohit on the topic. So just brief what you feel like telling and things like that. Then slowly we will just go ahead with the, I have prepared a couple of set of things which we can discuss as a panel discussion. Then in the last 30 minutes, we'll take over the question answers. Is this clear?
Okay.
Okay.
So good afternoon to all the audience. Till the computer gets set, I think we commit ourselves for the next 15 minutes journey. I will say, completely embedded into the safety. We'll try to come out clean and safe out of it, I hope. Thank you, Rohit, also for joining. So it is strengthening further us on the technology side.
Absolutely.
So really, it is for me, I came into safety field little accidentally. I was peacefully breaking the components and I was a reliability structure expert, but destiny has brought me into the safety by the pure, I think, coincidence of knowledge on the servo hydraulics, and that's how I enter into this game. And last 20 years, I'm working into this. So I am very thankful to Indian Road Safety Campaign for inviting me, and also Giri for accommodating me as an expert here. And I would definitely try to do justice for the next few minutes. So guys, I would like to go to the next slide. It will slowly unfold how the safety roadmap for India really started. Actually, when we are talking about road safety, it's a big and wide subject. Everybody knows is a multi-sectoral subject. But we are right into the center beam of the safe vehicle. That is what our part of responsibility is there to shoulder. Improve the vehicle safety standard is the topic today. Let's go ahead. So I will try to unfold you the how the different standard came as a part of my career also, and it unfolded as a roadmap for India. Maybe the next slide will help you to show you, take you through the say 20 years, last 20 years in 5-year window. Can we move to the next slide, please? Hello? Are we able to move to the next slide, or can I? Okay. So I am trying to give you a complete 20 years quick run through every 5-year window, what happened as a milestone thing. Maybe next page down, please. So you will get a first window. So first 5 years, we were very busy. Industry was busy preparing the components which are safety critical and qualifying them for the safety standards, what they were, and installing them onto the vehicle. And the installation was also requiring a type approval. That was the elementary thing which started in 2000 and 2005 window. Large number of safety critical component, mirror, lighting, signaling components, and all stuff like that we started doing. Next came the window 2005 to 10, where we started aligning our standard as a policy of Government of India with UNECE regulations. And first time we started looking into not only type approval, but conformance of production for the first time. Maybe next page down will take you to the next window of 5 years, please. So there we started focusing on to the bus code, truck code. We thought that India is a populous country and mass transportation has to be given a due focus. The bus code rolled out, the truck code was made. Then we also thought that we are talking about adult occupant, but we also transport a lot of children. We thought that it is wiser to put a regulation standard in place for child restraint system. Then we started slowly increasing electronic components in the vehicle, and we understood that EMC can play havoc if we don't do that. Then ABS for heavy commercial vehicle was there. Then the last window, which is the current window of 5 years, 2015 to 20, where we had seen ABS technology penetrating to two-wheeler and four-wheelers. Two-wheeler, particularly ABS and CBS, has really made this generation two-wheeler much safer. So this next window, I was talking about the current window where we are talking about ABS for two-wheeler and four-wheeler. And the big change which happened was the crash worthiness for the passenger car and the pedestrian safety. Also, electric vehicles started coming, hybrid electric vehicles started coming. and impact of the global harmonization was also seen in the standard. Influence, yeah, this is much more a pictorial one, which gives us the early days. I remember in 1993, we had a safety belt as a mandatory fitment, but nobody knew what kind of a specification it should have. And anything was acceptable as a safety belt as long as it is looking like a belt. Those were the days when it took India 2002 to set us into the completely aligned, harmonized standard belt standard as a ECE R16 compliant standard. And then for the first time, occupant safety becomes center of the focus. In between, we had a side intrusion of the standard laid down as a static standard, but we permitted many times the vehicle without side door. So that was the era I am talking about. But when about after 2002, it gathered a lot of momentum, the occupant safety and the safety in general, a lot of regulations started pouring in. And in the dreams also, we will see the belts and belt anchorage, because we tested almost entire fleet of body shell in white for India, 200 plus. And in dreams also, I will see seat belt anchorage test at that time. That was the time I'm remembering. Then we came to the interior fitments, where we started looking into the dashboard as an energy absorbent component. First time India understood that it is not good enough just to have dashboard, any dashboard, but must have an energy absorbing kind of a dashboard. And we can't afford to put any sharp objects onto the dashboard. Even if the sharp object could be a God image, but then God will not be able to save us, even if he wants to save in a real accident, if we meet with the real life crash situation with the hard and sharp objects in our head impact zone. We started understanding. Then was the era where the survival space for the trucks started coming into it. And for passenger, as far as the buses are concerned, we take it that it is one of the safe mode of transport as long as it doesn't roll over or doesn't catch fire. So it's otherwise a very safe mode of transport. We started testing buses in ARAI against the standard called the rollover strength of the buses, or a strength of the superstructure. Then a lot of underrun devices were tested, front underrun device, which is a big savior, saves a lot of fatal accidents if it is properly engineered. Then came the famous era for the crash worthiness, where we set first, the standards were set early in 2008 and 9 for the crash worthiness, aligned fully with the European standard. But it took us almost 2015 to notify, and India was busy in creating the national test facilities all across in the under NATRIP initiative. And the pedestrian safety law also came up. So can we go to the next slide, please? Where you have now understood the whole game, we'll go to the learnings. So mainly the standard in India had been highly influenced with the international, say, harmonization pressures at global harmonization, thanks to the well thought out UNEC regulations. But while we were trying to follow them, sometimes it was always creating some difficulties, because we could not have the total background of our own traffic conditions, our real life accident, and we didn't have the real life accident data. Our traffic conditions were slightly different, but factors always help us. New technologies were coming, and these factors influence our standard making, sometimes giving the jerky start-stop mode. Sometimes we were waiting, sometimes we were hurrying. And that's how we traverse the entire roadmap as far as up to 2020 is concerned. Can we move to the next slide, please? Could you go? Yes. This is how we have almost, India is one of the proud countries where we can say most of our Indian standards are well led and fully aligned technically to the UNEC regulation. The slide shows that out of the 136 odd standards at that time, the count has gone to 150 plus now. we had already 114 standard completely technically aligned to the UNECE. But what was now the red slice shows is the new subject. Just lane departure warning, advanced emergency braking system, and maybe emergency recall, which requires substantial infrastructure to be in place. We couldn't rush to these standards. They were waiting for the roadmap for the infrastructure to follow. Maybe we'll move to the next slide could you go to the next slide, please? This is what was the commitment of India to the global community in this decade, 2011 to 20. And we have fulfilled almost all. You will see the green marks said yes. All important regulation in place, yes. All the vehicles type approved for those standards, yes. Pedestrian regulation is also undergoing. And now the more important subject was, one of the important subject which is still pending is implementation of new car assessment program, encourage development of ESC and ABS. ABS we have partly taken for four-wheelers also and commercial vehicle passenger car, but ESC is on the anvil now. Can we move to the next slide for the Bharat New Car Assessment Program? Maybe here I would like to say that a lot of effort was done to concurrently start the subject of Bharat NCAP along with the crashworthiness for India. As you know that NCAP is again a consumer instrument rather than a mandatory regulation. Mandatory regulation lays down always the minimum safety requirement, whereas the tools like NCAP always have helped the countries and the various communities to pass on the benefit to the consumer of increasing margins of the safety, where manufacturer is encouraged due to the competition and the consumer pressure to add. To give you the status of Bharat NCAP, we have in November 2014 itself have completely made the protocols and submitted and recommended to ministry and the task force. I worked under Government of India mandate to make the protocols. Thanks to the industry, they supported, and in an accelerated manner, we made those. Then government said, let crash regulation be notified. Everybody was busy in getting their vehicle crash tested. The crash testing facility was at ARAI and other test facilities under NATRIP were up and on. We are busy breaking the cars. And there had in April 2016, the review of the recommendation with other stakeholders did happen. And it was assured that they will, some more things will happen on when to move into this regime. Next slide, please. Mr. Giri, I have just put a caption, any good thing takes time, because I was told in please wait, have been patient. This is a good thing which will come. So I have also added its caption to the slide to defend myself.
Thank you very much. Any good thing.
From my side, I have completed my task of delivering all the protocol, getting every stakeholder on table. We have all the test facility ready, compliant, and my engineers are waiting, battery of engineers to, and as a matter of fact, they're doing all NCAP testing for a country, whosoever wants, get prepared. And that's how we are in this phase, but we are eagerly waiting for a I would say that mandate from Government of India to get into this.
Correct.
So we move to the next slide, please.
Okay.
So maybe next slide will show you what has happened as a byproduct of this. Lot of persuasion. Ministry said, okay, whatever you saying about technology, all that what you were saying is mandated in one single AI. Nothing available in your Bharat NCAP as a new technology initiative, and you are the basically convener for this AIS 145. That's how M1 category had seen speed alert, seatbelt reminder, manual override system, driver airbag, and also maybe one page down will show you other than M1 category RPAS, perhaps. Maybe one page down, please. Yes, please. Go page down. simply page down. Yeah. This is what the vehicle for the reverse gear parking will come, is very important safety technologies which would have penetrated as a mandatory law.
Okay.
Let's move to the next slide, please. Would you quickly move to the next slide? Yeah, this slide, I like it very much because I respect the technology and innovation all the time. People, in this cart, we see the horses which represent technology, very powerful and innovative. And you can't have regulation before technology. Technology has to come first, acceptable, penetrable, useful to the society. Then it is affordable. Then the regulations can be made just like a reins. These regulations to benefit wider society. And of course, the regulator has to hold it tight for implementation. If the regulation is there and it is loosely held, will not help us. So this is how I want to, so the various technologies will keep coming, but we will find that this is the way it will move on. To the next slide, please.
Now we know who is pulling the string there.
Great. So I also felt during my a lot of this close vegetative working in the standard, we have to embrace global technology, but we have to adopt local adoptions we have to do. That's how we will come to a smart solution, what we call localization. And we have done it in many cases. I be thank to the technology like ABS and CBS for two-wheeler, which I feel that our generation use the scooters, early motorcycles, and this generation is using far safer motorcycles on the road, and still they are moving very fast without any skidding, thanks to the new technology and how it is can penetrate and how we can really keep ourselves safe, enjoying the ride also. Go to the next slide, please. Almost I am coming towards now the another area where I said that, okay, standard making will help us, but we can't forget that we are part of the whole game. We can't be only pushing standard. Otherwise, every day dream, suppose we have 5-star car everywhere loaded fully with technology. But how our ultimate goal is to reduce the fatality on the road. The moment I see fatalities on the road, I feel that something we are still not doing. So the answer came in the Swedish policy of Vision Zero, which it's a too big chapter by itself. I won't be going into the detail, but I will say a small few words in the next slide and then conclude. Giri, is it all right? Am I in time?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
So I was talking about this, that vehicle can be made as safe as possible. Today's also Indian road, we have extraordinarily safe vehicle, as safe as in Germany or anywhere in the world. But what matters is, are you having a safe ecosystem? Do you have safe roads? Do you have users which are disciplined and using them safe? And ultimately, is ecosystem guaranteeing the safe speed until for particular speed, everything will look unsafe. Even all engineering will look unsafe once we exceed the speed. So speed is a master control. I would say that in an entire ecosystem, we cannot forget that God has made us with biomechanical limits that the road users can tolerate without sustaining severe injuries are limited. So we have to have a complete ecosystem available. I will give only one example here and then conclude. For example, we have now already pedestrian law in place, but who will guarantee that pedestrian will not be hit by the car, which is pedestrian friendly, at a speed not more than 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers? Otherwise, entire effort what we have put for crashworthiness and pedestrian friendliness for a vehicle cannot be really benefited to the pedestrian. So we have to have a complete ecosystem in place. We'll move to the next slide because this is not the topic of my today's focus. So I have come to summarize now. While implementing the safety regulation as per the roadmap, it will continue to demand always minimum safety. We must understand, all community listening to it, that regulation will always guarantee only minimum safety. Worldwide, it is also guaranteeing minimum safety. What we then have to really look into is the tools like voluntary tools like NCAP, which will guarantee and demand more safety due to competition beyond regulations. A car meeting regulation is a 0-star car. And if you want to add stars, you have go up into your margins of safety. New safety bill has also come as an enabler for improving road safety scenario in India. Lot of flexibility is there to raise our bar in the other areas by, like, for example, those which are not covered under the mandatory law, but still very important from the safety perspective of a vehicle. Accident data, which is a close subject to the heart of Mr. Giri, who is a pioneer in putting the statistics. So I will leave that accident data scientifically available. We'll make our data and decisions much more sound, and it will be data driven. And of course, the last but not least, implementation of an ecosystem by a very solid, robust Vision Zero policy will show not only positive but irreversible changes on our safety. Thank you very much, guys, for giving me 15 minutes to enjoy with you. And I'm all available for any question and answer, whatever you want, whatever little I know. And if I don't know, maybe Giri is there to supplement me and correct me if something is lagging. Rohit may also support me. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Manikar sir. I think you gave a very good overview of all the topics, whatever is being discussed. And I prepared a couple of questions specific to ask to you. I think you answered everything in the first 15 minutes itself. I'm really not sure what else I'm going to talk today, because I had a couple of questions on BNSAP. You put a tagline that anything good comes with a timeline. And a couple of regulations. Now we know who's pulling the string, who is the horse, and other things. Excellent job done, sir. I think it's one of the best presentations, which was very concise, because it's quite complicated to elaborate the vehicle safety standards in 10 to 15 minutes. But you gave a very good gist on this topic, and I think now the people here know overview of what is happening with the vehicle regulations, how it is done, and other things. But we will dwell a little bit more into it in the in couple of minutes. More. And I would like to tell you that this is the first session where we crossed 350 participants on the participants list at one go. Yeah. So big fans for Manikar sir and Rohit sir. So
it may be a Giri
effect. It's all Manikar sir, not me. It's Manikar.
It may be Giri effect. It may be a Giri effect.
I've been doing this in 7 weeks. The first week for my speech, I only got 40 participants. So nevertheless, the things went well. Thank you very much. So the next topic, we will just go to Rohit. So Rohit, as we all know that the technology front from your side we know the technology is a horse and the regulators are sitting on the chariot and the strings are pulled by the regulators in between. So yeah, it's very clear. So I just wanted to know a little bit more on how this horse is developed, how the horse is made to run, at what speed the horse is made to run. As a synonym of it, Rohit, I would like to leave the stage to you for the next 5 to 10 minutes to brief about how technology plays an important role in assisting all these stakeholders of your expertise. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Giri. And it's really difficult to follow up the person who has the reins in his hand, Manikar sir. I have been privileged to be a part of many forums which is chaired by him. And since I have come into Bosch, a lot of regulations which have happened under the conveyorship of Mr. Manikar. So I'm really happy that I am able to share the dais with him, this virtual dais due to the lockdown. Also, a big cheers to IRSC for conducting such a valuable webinar during this situation. IRSC team actually beams of a lot of talent and virtue. and it's always been a pleasure collaborating with you guys. And yeah, a special shout out to Giri for wholeheartedly supporting this initiative. So let's get started, guys. Yeah, let's get started. I won't take too much of time in introducing the standards because it's already been done by the expert himself. I would like to just tell you how the standard formulation happens, because that's a question that I keep getting. How does the standard formulation happen in India? People think that standard formulation is just an overnight result achievement topic. But the fact remains that it's an ardent task which has involved dedicated efforts from the government, technical and subject matter experts, and the automotive industry collectively for decades. One of the earliest steps in this direction was the Motor Vehicles Act 1988, which came into force on 1st of July 1989. For exercising the legislative provisions of this act, the Government of India made the CMVR rules in 1989. The Motor Vehicles Act and the CMVR govern the rules and regulations related to construction and maintenance of motor vehicles, driver's license, registration of motor vehicles, control of traffic, etc. This whole initiative is not just a government alone driven initiative. In order to involve all the stakeholders in regulation formation, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has constituted some committees to deliberate and advise the ministries on issues related to safety and emission. Some of these committees are the CMVR TSE committee or the Technical Standing Committee. Then you have the Standing Committee on Implementation of Emission Legislation. You have Automotive Industry Standards Committee, etc. Apart from the government ministries like Ministry of Heavy Industries, Public Enterprises, Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the other stakeholders in this whole gambit are the Automotive Manufacturers Body, which is SIAM, the Automotive Components Body, which is ACMA, premier test agencies like ARAI, ICAT, NATRAX, and many more. So the onus of improving safety standards does not lie with one agency or one party alone. It lies with the entire automotive ecosystem of India. Just to give you of how regulations have evolved over the ages, Manikar sir has beautifully put the timeline. I will focus on the era when major improvements happened. And this was in 2014. In 2014, ABS for heavy commercial vehicles was mandated by the government. This was a new chapter in safety regulations in India. 2017 brought various crash-related regulations such as offset crash, side crash, and pedestrian protection. ABS became mandatory for all new car models and two-wheelers above 125cc from April 2018 and all models from April 2019. Actually, 2019 was a landmark year in vehicle safety domain in India, with regulations related to airbags, speed alert system, driver and co-driver seatbelt reminder, manual override for central locking system, vehicle reverse parking alert system, etc. Suddenly, the world just stood up and took note of India's progress in vehicle safety standards, especially since the regulations regarding two-wheeler ABS and reverse parking alert system were first of its kind anywhere across the globe. Since then, regulations for various safety technologies like electronic stability control or ESC, in Bosch we call it ESP, and advanced emergency braking systems have regularly been discussed by the ministry at various forums. Now, aspect number 2. How are the vehicle standards in India in comparison across the globe? This is a question that I get a lot. How is India compared to the global scenario? So let me just put a small perspective of how the global scenario looks like. With regards to vehicle stability, ESC is mandatory in developed regions such as Europe, US, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and others. In China, there is a self-commitment by 12 major brands to fit all new models with ESC from Jan 2018. In Brazil and Argentina, ESC is mandatory in all passenger car models from Jan 2020. Japan has taken the lead in regulating advanced emergency braking, that is AEB, and lane departure warning from 2020. 20 automakers in the US have pledged to voluntarily equip all new passenger vehicles by 2022 with a low-speed AEB that also includes a forward collision warning. And this commitment is intended to penetrate the technology into a wider mix of vehicle fleets. In the European Union, mandatory fitment of AEB, intelligent speed assist systems, driver drowsiness and attention, reverse camera, lane keeping systems, collision warning systems, all of this will be applicable as mandatory from 2022. Also, as Manikar sir has already mentioned, there are a lot of NCAPs or new car assessment programs which publish safety reports on new cars and award star ratings on the basis of performance of vehicles in various crash tests. The first NCAP was created in 1979 by United States NHTSA, and over the years, this has been copied by various regions across the world. So now you have a Euro NCAP, you have Latin NCAP, etc. Global NCAP, which is a name which I think many people in India have already heard of. It is an independent charity registered in the UK to enhance cooperation between the various NCAPs and promote vehicle crash testing and reporting in emerging markets. So the Safer for India campaign, which they had, resulted in testing of mass model cars in India since 2014. And the Stop the Crash initiative that they took in 2018 focused on ESC, AEB, and motorcycle ABS. Now, the obvious question that every one of you would have is, where does India stand in comparison to these countries? It's actually a tricky question because it depends on what you're actually comparing. The most affordable car in Europe is priced at around 7,800 euros. In India, currently the most affordable car is 3,500 euros. And this car meets all the Indian crash regulations, has basic safety features like airbags, ABS, seat belt reminders, reverse parking sensors, etc. So, are we actually looking to have every feature available in a European car model in India at less than half the price if we are comparing apple to apple? Let me give you an example. ESC or ESP is a feature which is available in many car models in India today. Bosch is incidentally celebrating its 25th anniversary of ESP, and we have suggested over the years that ESP can prevent up to 80% of all skidding related accidents globally. When you talk about India, the Bosch Accident Research Team, which Giri is a part of, has said that ESC can prevent up to 9,000 deaths and 14,000 seriously injured road users every year. But the percentage of cars which is sold in India with ESC is very, very low. And this then begs the question, what is the most important feature we are looking in a car while buying a car? Is it a safety system like driver or passenger airbags and ESC? Or is it a best infotainment system with a 10-inch touchscreen or a sunroof or other upholstery and so on? Like my mentor always says, a consumer would not mind paying extra for the basic and best security and camera features available in a mobile phone, but he will not wear a helmet while riding a bike. With my experience as a part of the whole policy formation think tank in India, and also with my in-depth understanding of the automotive landscape from a consumer's perspective, I can say with surety that the automobile manufacturers in India have strived to make cars safer and at par with global prevalent technologies. I'm sure you have all heard about the two Indian SUVs which were awarded 5-star by Global NCAP for adult occupant protection. These two models comprised of roughly 10% of all the UV sales in India in 2019. One of the recent entrants in the automobile space in India has ESC as a standard feature across all its car models. Similarly, many OEMs are now offering 2 to 6 airbag systems as standard. So finally, what does it boil down to? It boils down to the economies of scale. If more number of consumers buy car models which are equipped with safety systems, the car manufacturer automatically produces more variants with such systems. The penetration of ABS in the cars sold in 2013 was roughly 32%, which jumped to more than 50% by 2016, which meant more than half of the cars being sold in India in 2016 were already equipped with ABS even before it became a regulation. In China, 63% of the cars have ESC even without a regulation, and 95% have ABS without a regulation. So then it brings us back to our basic question. Is there a need to improve the safety standards of vehicles in India? Yes, definitely there is a scope of improvement. India is on a steady path in terms of improving the overall vehicular safety, and we will see features like ESC, locally adapted collision warning and avoidance system as standard features in the near future. But then again, each one of us should ask ourselves, do we practice wearing a seat belt while we are seated in a car? or we wear it only because it will attract a fine. Enforcement can work only up to a certain extent, but then it is eventually our prerogative to make the right choices, either while buying a car or if we are enjoying a drive in it. So with this, I would like to end this small speech. I think Giri has a lot of questions that he can probably answer for you, and I'm looking forward to some insights from your end. Thanks.
Thank you, Rohit. No, not at all. I don't have questions. All my questions are answered from both of us. So very good. So I was just boggling about my thought process of all the technologies which you told. I'm pretty much sure in the entire 350 plus participants, they would have missed one or the other technologies what you spoke. It was so rapid. So it's really good to know. It's really good to know that the India is progressing so much. And I was talking with an international regulators and also international legislators in a couple of countries like Europe and also in US. They said they took almost 20 years to mandate ABS and the ESP and also airbags in their countries, with lots of meetings, so close to 20 meetings, 30 meetings, and again review, again petitions and other things. But India just took 5 years to put everything on the plate from 2014. I still remember 2014 meeting in the AS panel in the ARI, which was shared by Manikar sir. I just direct from the college saying, "Good morning, sir. I am from Bosch." Everything was new to me, how the regulation is formed. I initially thought regulation is formed by one company, or government says, "Okay, you put this." But it's so complex that you have the Automotive Body Association, you have component manufacturers, you have test agencies, you have the chief secretary or the joint secretary chairing the session. Everyone has to be, everyone has to agree for what we have to do. So, dear participants, over to you all, that what you see today as a legislation regulation is not one person's thought process. It's the whole country where every engineer, every person who's involved in it has put a lot of their brain to it. And also people from ARI like Manikar sir, who are also developing the testings and also standards to put into the vehicles to make many things safe. So with this, I would like to come to Manikar sir, that you clearly explained about how the process is. So my question is, say for example, now there will be a question from some XYZ company or some person who wants to put a new technology to the country, or new technology to the car, or new technology to the motorcycle. For example, let's rewind back 2012, where we were talking about ABS for trucks. Yeah. So where ABS was pretty new for the whole of a country. So when such new technology comes in as a request, how it is legislated, how it is regulated, what is the process that you follow, and what are the difficulties and challenges that you face?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Giri. Basically, we always feel that when the technology has a big potential and we all want it to come early, and really it helps the entire road safety scenario to bring down the fatality, which is ultimately our goal. So under such circumstances, we have very recently given some recommendations of a joint working committee to, again, MORTH, saying that whenever there are good potential technology and somebody is, today it is at a premium cost because it's a nascent technology and you don't have the number game available, the government of India should incentivize this for a nascent time, for a time where it is required to gather the, I will say, the quantum of the numbers. It should be incentivized. If it is otherwise, somebody will feel that I am putting that technology on my vehicle and it is becoming expensive. So the question asked to me that you are doing the crash worthiness of the vehicle and you are making the car expensive because you add so much of test cost to the vehicle. But I said that no, we are not doing that. We are doing this for saving the life of the person. So in this case, it has been, I think this recommendation might go through because it has been strongly supported by the ex-secretary ministry, MORTH, where he has taken it that he will convince in the government offices that we should incentivize the safety wherever there is a new idea, and we look at big potential there. Will that answer you, Giri?
Yeah, that's fine, sir. That's fine. Rohit, how do you bring in technology for the country? Like company like Bosch has a vast amount of expertise working across various countries, be it Latin America, be it Europe, be it US, be it the developing countries, LMIC country, even in Vietnam on the eastern part. So all these cater and different geographics, like different driving behavior patterns and different spectrums, different traffic conditions. How Bosch is scoping up to identify what technology is needed for which country and what is really going to save lives.
So when you talk of technology, Giri, the most important thing is technology should be locally adapted. Companies like Bosch or other companies are global companies which have a global product portfolio. But then when you have products which are catered to the market that you're operating in, then it makes sense. Not only from a commercial perspective, but also from a perspective of saving lives or reducing accidents. I'll give you a classic example. Bosch realized that ABS can be a product which will have a lot of potential to reduce fatalities in India in 2008. That's when ABS was manufactured. We started manufacturing ABS in India. And look today what happened. From 2013 to 2016, the installation rate of ABS has doubled. And then you finally had the regulations. Similarly with ESC, ESC as a technology has not started today or yesterday. It started since 2010, 2012. And today we are seeing that the penetration is increasing because ESC as a technology is very important for a country like India, where you have wet roads, where you have ghat sections, where you have vehicles which have a high center of gravity. So rollover is possible in such vehicles. So in such scenarios, you have ESC. Motorcycle ABS, another classical example. Nowhere in the world they wanted to mandate motorcycle ABS because they didn't feel a need for it. But India, with 21 million motorcycles, had to do something for motorcycle safety. And that's why you have ABS mandatory above 125 and CBS optional below 125. So technology, when adopted to the region it's operating, makes more sense than rather just pushing technology. That's my opinion.
That was perfect. Sir, Manika sir, do you have any take on it?
Yeah, I perfectly agree with Rohit because we have a lot of SUVs with a lot of CGs which are up, and we have undulations on the road. Banking is not so good. So rollover safety today is completely absent because we are not doing any rollover safety test on our SUVs. Sometimes this is a very soft subject when the CG is up. We always talk to the manufacturer saying that please take care. Any bad road, country road, the vehicle is likely to roll. And I believe that under such circumstances, this along with the recommendation for differential excise duty for a good technology to come in, where we clearly said that differential excise duty for manufacturers that have incorporated road safety norms over and above the mandated regulation should be in place. This will motivate manufacturer to bring in the technologies which will which will contribute potentially in the safety. We also said that even rebate up to 5% in the excise duty should be given for 5-star car rated cars. Otherwise, why people will make 5-star car?
Correct.
I mean, something like
Exactly.
that. I don't know if it will be heard or it will be lost in the mask that we are wearing and social distancing.
Okay, so thank you, thank you. So the next is like one question on the anthropomorphic data, which has been a very widely conducted research in ARAI. So that I also saw that there is no other dummies which is available in India specifically or in many countries. So all what we use in AS098, AS099, all the standards which has been built up, we use 50th percentile male dummy, which is an American male dummy, and which is around 6 feet and 86 kg. So very less of Indian populations are 6 feet or more than 90 kgs. Unless this last 3 months made us to put on some 10 kgs extra weight. So so the whole point is like anthropomorphic data study. I saw the study and the published report from ARI since long time, but it has not been put into the place for the testing of Indian-based dummies. Is there any thought process? And the research work in this direction, sir?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question because today what we have done is more of a driving population, and it is more of a cloud data in terms of the sizing of a person, and not the biofidelity of a person is not captured there. But however, I see a great potential now. EVs are coming and the internal space are getting redefined. We have a good amount of possibilities. We have done the virtual dummies. We will explain you sometime with the greater details, and which could be really useful. And I had some dialogues with international expert. They say that this could be useful to your local condition with the research team who are really working on restraint system and like that, who are optimizing things. So it is a matter of a greater technical depth. We will talk separately on this subject, but certainly I am hopeful that one day we will have Indian dummies because sometimes I see that we are over engineering, but God has been very graceful. He had been very judicious. He has made tolerances same for whether American, German or Indian. As far as the tolerance to injury is concerned, it is the same. Sizes yes, that we bring in, that would add some kind of a vulnerability. That's it. That's why even dummies available, we are also quite safe.
Coming back a little bit on the favorite topic of data. So do you feel road accident data is important for India? And if yes, why the government agencies or any of the biggest agencies not involved in collections of data in depth, unless like other countries like JIDAS, OTIS, NAS, or even even MIROS from Malaysia is also doing this specifically, because this is the volume of just what is available for us, from which all your test standards can evolve on based on the database what is available. But as of now, India do not have any database which is developed by the government or supported by many other countries. But one database of such is RASI, which we all know where it's been funded by the corporates and it's been developed. So any thought process on ARI to dwell into such kind of topics?
Yeah, I believe that's a very important subject. Always data has been close to the heart of ARI, generating data. We have generated a lot of material data. We have generated a lot of service load data, road load data, but accident data is something which is becoming much more challenging than what we thought that we would do it. But of course, nonetheless, I thought that NATRIP has initiated something in along with IIT Delhi, but we let us understand ministry can support, but if you really look, they are so much busy in their day-to-day affair with the legal things. So maybe it is required that the real expertise, which will come from probably the accident research experts like JP Research and RASI, but government should support it. I mean, nothing like it is. It would be possible to collect it at multiple centers in the same uniform way, so that database grows. Perhaps each center can be given some task in its own area to do that, and that would really add to this data. ARI has a limited capability in reconstruction, but we have not really developed the potential into really acquiring the road accident data, and we heavily depend on Dr. Ravi Shankar and team to give us advice on the data and providing the insight into the standards also. Yes, please.
That's good. So how accident research data is used in corporates, Rohit? Do you have any idea how this data has been used and linked to the vehicle technologies or something like that? How is the studies going on in this direction?
I think accident research data is one of the critical features that are used in any kind of policy formation. In all the years of my experience and sitting with the think tank and thinking about policies, there has never been a meeting where accident research data has not been discussed. The only problem that we have had till date is, as Mr. Manika rightly said, there should be a uniform data approach that we adopt in India. This is something that has been missing. RASI has been doing a fantastic role for the past 10 years in evaluating road accidents across the geographies of India, across different highways, and giving us different scenarios of what would happen if a certain safety technology is installed in the vehicle. If ABS is there in a vehicle, how much percentage of accidents can be reduced, or ESP? Now, this data is important to kind of extrapolate from a small data set to the entire nation, that if all the vehicles are equipped with a certain technology, this is the effect that technology will have. And we are talking not about 10,000, 20,000 accidents. In India, we are talking about almost 5 lakh accidents reported. So unreported accidents is, what is the count of unreported accidents? And fatalities are 150,000 reported fatalities. So this is not a small task. If you have to even try to reduce 10,000 or 20,000 fatalities, you have to put the right technology. And the right technology can come only backed with data. Without data, there is no point in pushing anything in terms of the technology space in automotive. That's clear.
Okay, so let me just add a small point to it. So there was one important aspect using accident research data. When you want to put a brake, for example, single channel ABS or a 2-channel ABS, there was a question, which wheel we have to put in, because we do not know how a rider is braking, whether he's braking the front brake or whether he's braking a rear brake. This is a big question and confusion. When you have CBS, anyway, it has been transformed and you need a uniform braking, this will happen. So accident research data will clearly show you how exactly the Indian people driving behavior happens. So you can also refer the essay paper which is published by us, which clearly gives for the first time how an Indian rider brakes in a critical situation. To my surprise, 33%, more than 35% of Indian motorcycle riders do not brake at all. This is another important aspect. Second aspect is, there are people who brake and steer. This is a unique phenomena which happens in India. And this phenomena does not happen in other countries, in the Western countries, which I talk about. Because when you are passing on a lane and you have an obstacle in front of you, people brake and stand. Because in the Western countries, strictly rules are followed because they are not allowed to change the lanes whenever they need it. In India, wherever we have space, we just try to squeeze in and get inside. And this is directly reflected in an accident research data. And you can clearly see close to 60% of the Indian riders brake and steer together. So this becomes much more complicated to create a new function or develop a product which will cater for such kind of an accident avoidance. So it's just a thought process of the research which I just gave it to you.
Same way, Giri, one of the myths that people have when they want to push technology is that, will technology work in all climates? Will technology work in the day, in the night? What is the human error involved? All this does not come just like that. It requires a lot of research which has to be done to show that human error causes 90% of the accidents. Weather does not play such an important factor, but there are other factors which play a more important role. And your whole storyline of a technology evolves around these parameters. So data you cannot separate from technology. Clear point.
Exactly. Thank you, Rohit, for that. So I know it took a lot of time for us to work on BNV SAP, the NCAP New Car Assessment Program from us. So there were various days, I think a couple of years back, 2016, 15. It was a year where we can only read a newspaper that all the top Indian cars are 0 stars. All the cars are killer cars. Yeah, last week also I discussed the same topic with Ivy Rao sir as well. Okay, the topic is like everything is killer car. So when people read, because I own an X brand of a car and I'm driving since with my family all the time, and you read the newspaper saying that this is gonna kill you, what will happen? That it is gonna pull you back. Is no car safe in India? Will be the question. So how was the thought process came to you, Manikar sir? Because I know you were the father of writing and drafting the BNV SAP at that point of time with your team. I wanted to just check you. What was your feedback when you read such news, and how did you develop the whole BNV SAP draft program?
Yeah, actually, we had been working when such news started coming. A lot of parliamentary questions started pouring in, asking what kind of cars are there, what kind of standards we have, what is this. Then we had to give a little big presentation to the ministry, first explaining that the speeds are what we are talking about in India means speed, and what a global NCAP is doing is a completely different thing. Another thing we brought to their notice that we need to improve the mean safety of every structure. We have a crash worthiness standard all across the board. Then we can fine tune. Otherwise, we will have few pockets of 5-star cars here and there, but there will be some cars even where the belt anchorage is coming in hand. So it will not help. So that's how we even asked this question in the Global NCAP forum, and the answer was very clear that you have to have your crash regulation first implemented, and superimposed to that, you can simultaneously start or start after that. That was the answer.
Okay. Okay. I think in India, crash regulations are already in place. AS 098,
Yes.
100, 99 were already in place. Yeah. How
Yes.
different it is from crash regulation and the NCAP test programs. So many people
Absolutely.
go confused with this. They do not know what is the difference between a legislation and a regulation. A new car assessment program, star rating, and the regulations what ARI is testing. If you can just give us a brief, and the participants can understand much better.
Yeah. I would say the very simple words that if you have a car which is meeting regulation, still it could be 0-star rating car, because the safety margins start adding up beyond 0. For example, let us take a simple example of head injury, where we have head injury below 1,000 is good enough for regulation. 5-star car, you have to bring the head injury down below 650. So it is a continuous, a linear process where we cut down on the injuries and add. That's how we earn the star. Is earned by adult occupants, testing adult occupant safety, child safety, pedestrian friendliness of the car, and also otherwise is not comprehensively looked for the margins from the regulation. Regulation is only guaranteeing this is the minimum safety this car can give, not what is the additional safety it will give.
Right. So thank you very
Am I
much.
clear?
Yes, you gave us a very clear answer how it is. So regulation is a mandate that every vehicle has to pass, and that will have a base minimum standards, and you cannot expect that base minimum standard to perform like a 5-star, right?
Yes.
So that's the understanding. So 5-star is something like where your car standards has to, from HIC value, the head injury criteria value has to come from some 1,000 to 600 or even 550, and it is designed in different processes. That's all it is. Now, in the same NCAP program, we also see technology coming into picture, and wherein we saw, I've been closely following Euro NCAP since they started with an ABS where they have around 4 points on a linear scale with which 4 different verticals with the AOP, COP, the adult protection, child protection, and also on pedestrian protection, and also on the vehicle safety technologies. They have 4 pillars. India also has the same 4 pillars.
Yes,
and
sure.
how does this technology wing, the 4th pillar, which will also form a critical mass to get a star rating, how this technology is added and deleted? Because if you see Euro NCAP, a couple of years back, it had ESP mandated where it has to be there in order to get a 5-star rating. If you do not have this particular technology, you do not get a 5-star, right? And if you have AEB, you get a 5-star, and if it is not there, you are not even entitled to reach a particular test of an AEB in Euro NCAP. So this is just evolving in Euro NCAP, and also in Latin NCAP. There are 7 NCAPs, and all NCAPs are doing this. How this technology is added into the list and deleted into the list? Rohit, can you just give us some idea, and then we take it from Manika? Okay, Rohit, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, what was your question?
My question was, in the NCAP program, like Euro NCAP, Latin NCAP, ASEAN NCAP, you have 4 different verticals, like adult occupant protection, COP, child occupant protection,
PP and
protection, and the last is the vehicle safety. So there are a lot of technology which just get added to the list and gets deleted to the list. For example, 4 years back, 5 years back, you see ESP as a mandatory vehicle technology to perform as a 5-star. Yeah, if you do not have that, it is you are not even entitled to go for the tester in Euro NCAP. Like that, how the technology is just getting added to the table and getting deleted to the table, and what is the driving force to get there, to get that particular technology. Now, if you see Euro NCAP 2020 with the safety visor, it clearly says that you should have an AEB with so much of sensors and things like that. So the technology is also getting upgraded. How does the technology come into the list? Who's pushing this technology? How it has been more relevant for getting the star rating?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, Giri, because if you see the advancement of Euro NCAP over the years, Euro NCAP has always spoken about technologies which are penetrating more in the market and going forward. So they have a certain criteria that there should be at least 20% penetration of that equipment, either as a standard equipment or as an optional equipment in the first 2 years. After that, after the first 2 years, then they have 55% as their penetration rate as a standard or an optional equipment. This is how Euro NCAP adds technology. Now, today, if you see in Euro NCAP 2020, if you talk about just Euro NCAP 2020, they are already talking about things like AEB junction. Then they're talking about AEB cyclists. They have been talking since 2018, but they've increased the number of points for AEB cyclists. They're talking of more advanced technologies. They're not talking of basic technologies. And that is because they want to increase the penetration of these technologies to a certain extent where it can become a regulation. So tomorrow, if certain cars have a 5-star, they have these technologies, people would want to buy those cars. And then for the European regulations of the European Commission, it becomes very easy to pass the regulation. That's why they are able to give you AEB and driver drowsiness by 2022. If you try to give these technologies as regulation before it is penetrated, it is not possible. So you need a certain amount of penetration. And that's how Euro NCAP operates. So if you talk about Euro NCAP 2025, they're already talking about level 3, level 4 functions of DA or ADAS. And this itself is a big thing. So you are already giving the consumer an option to buy a car with such a technology today. And you're encouraging car manufacturers to make such cars with technologies today, so that by 2025, at least a certain amount of people will have these technologies already operating. So that's how they operate. Another point that you raised, which I would like to really put forth, is that when it comes to Indian regulations, whether it is AIS 98, AIS 99, or AIS 100, they are all aligned with UNEC regulations. AIS 98 is aligned with R94, AIS 99 is aligned with R95, then AIS 100 is aligned with GTR 9. Every single regulation in India is aligned to a UNEC regulation. So if somebody says that Indian regulations are not are substandard or are not as per standard, that is completely incorrect. We are aligning very well to UNEC and we are adopting these standards in our AIS standards.
So thank you. So Manika sir, do you want to add something for that?
Yeah, quick this one, how it should happen in India, some process we must keep ready. I think one of the things which is to be scientifically evolved is cost benefit analysis, benefit to the cost. And Rohit has rightly pointed, it is again the second name of penetration. If that penetration is more, the benefit to the societal benefit is more. If you can quantify any technology or regulatory intervention, how much cost benefit it is going to give, probably it should impress. And I think Mr. Giri is very good at that. Probably we should take expertise.
I'm not really good at it because even I do not have the data. Because my team is struggling with this data for almost a decade, because every forum we get the same question, what is the cost benefit ratio? So last week when Ivirav sir, Rashmi ma'am was there, any technology which was implemented in AES as a regulation, they also do cost benefit ratio, right? The problem for me is, what is the value of life in India? If a person is dead, what is the value? Which ministry has to give this number? What is the value of seriously injured person? how do you define seriously injured person? Whether it's permanently disabled or is disabled and recovered after a month. What is no injury cases? Is every accident is getting recorded? This is a very big challenge, sir. We also have a value of we have various statistical methods where we can prove it. So in this year, I think we are trying to do this particular calculation to estimate what is the total loss, which we all talk about 3% economic loss, GDP, everything, which is a 35 years old study, 3% of economic loss, GDP. Every conference opens with this statement, yeah, which is done 35 years. And nobody even thought about, can we really think of redoing it and cross-checking whether this GDP, this loss is increased or decreased, or it is staying the same? So this is another big topic which I am most eagerly waiting to do. And any participants who are there on the panel, please join us. Some statisticians, medical team. It's a mix of all the topics to work with. So that will give us a very good insight to it. Yeah. So cost benefit ratio
We should have one seminar dedicated to how to work out a cost benefit analysis. We can
definitely
worldwide.
Sir, very important.
So I will put it to you. Can you just form a panel so that we can work like an AS panel to do this cost benefit ratio, which is beneficial for every community?
Why not? We should try at least for one. I want to understand at least for a basic safety like a seat belt, how much the societal benefit is transferred. Let us say for a already implemented intervention, what is the societal benefit transferred?
Right. So looking forward to work on this subject, which is also my favorite subject to go with in the future. So coming back to a couple of topics, I'm also mixing all the participant questions which has been asked here in my panel discussion, so that we will not waste time and question answers separately. So there's another question that we see our vehicles are test standards and our vehicles are crashworthy as per the regulations. But when you see the crashes on the field, there is a big occupant intrusion which comes up. So when you say all the vehicles are going through a crash regulations and it is passed, but if a person is using a car which is worth 3,000 euros or 4,000 euros, and a person who is using the same car with 8,000 euros is really really occupant intrusion is much less. So there is two different type of construction of a body interiors or what do you say, structural worthiness of a vehicle. Is there any thought process, or is ARI working on uniforming this structural worthiness for the vehicle safety standards?
Okay. Practically, I would say that the load cases that we are seeing have come from some of the accident research which has happened in Europe. Let us be very frank about it. That offset frontal with 40% overlap or a side impact has classically come from the European roads, and the maybe undivided road 40% has worked well in India also, quite well. Side impact also, suddenly 90-degree people coming into the road, 90 degrees side also worked well, so far no issues. But real life accident we have seen, if we get into, we find that there are very many causes, and a lot of causes are related to the factors which are more related to the road infrastructure. The worrisome thing is if we conclude that this would not have happened if the road infrastructure or the blind spot or the black spot was not there. So it is a typical issue of a evolving infrastructure, but where infrastructure is better, yes, I do understand that if you take out the unsafe cars, our occupant safety is continuously improving better and better. People within car are much safer than people outside the car.
Outside the car.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is the only thing we could add.
Okay. This comes to my question to Rohit. What are the component manufacturers doing for the people who are outside the car to keep them safe?
Yeah, I think, Giri, this is where we have to go to now phase 3 of standards. We have achieved active safety and passive safety for people inside the car. Now the next step is for road occupants. And when you talk of road occupants, there has to be a equipment which will sense a person on the road. And this can be done only with the help of driver assistance systems. So driver assistance systems are basically the sensing part of the whole vehicle technology. And it starts from very low technology like collision warning, then it goes to things like AEB pedestrian, and then it goes further on to other levels. But if we have to now go and think about pedestrians, we have to think outside the car. And only those systems and sensors which can detect outside the car will be able to actually help us in saving a person who's either crossing the road or trying to avoid getting hit by a car. That's where pedestrian protection for me is a very important technology for AEB. If I put AEB as a pedestrian technology, pedestrian saving technology, AEB can actually help save a pedestrian as well as save you from getting into that accident situation. Many such other technologies are there, but with the current set, it's not going to be really possible. We need to go one step further. One good thing which has happened is AIS 100 has somewhere taken the pedestrian into consideration when designing a car, which is very good. But if we have to really make a dent in saving fatalities of pedestrians, we need to go a step further.
Okay. Okay. So you recommend technologies will play a big role in
Yes.
in identifying the vulnerable road users, be it a pedestrian, be it a bicyclist, be it a motorcyclist.
Anybody,
So,
anybody.
So I also saw a couple of topics which were discussed on L3, L4 systems and or L2, L3 systems, which also uses a lot of radars and too many sensors. So for autonomous vehicles, and our Zero NCAP is also moving towards this direction. In India, we might face a challenge because the existing radar systems which is available may not detect the people. Because last week, Bindu shared us, the head of ADAS system, clearly shared us, they were driving a vehicle with multiple radars and multiple sensors. There was a cow or a buffalo in front of a road. And your sensor did not detect it as a cow. It detected as two people standing because it could only sense two legs. Because this system is totally missing in India, because this is a quite common scene in India. And it also did not even detect the dog sleeping on the side of a road and some pedestrian who was sitting and selling a vegetable in the sides of a road and a quick pass of a motorcycle side sweep who overtakes. These situations have not been recorded, and these situations needs an intelligent algorithm to work with. So how India is coping up to face these challenges? You have a technology on one end, you have the sensors on one end, and you also have an effective algorithm and proven algorithms which is functioning. But all these things is not going to fit directly as a buy and place. Yeah. So how India is coping with this? So you can also give your perspective on all different companies working with how they are thinking to bring everything together to make the system work.
I think that's where again I come back to my point that we are going to a next level of safety standards. Till date, an ABS which was there in Germany, if you just took that ABS and put it in India, it was working. Same way an ESC in Germany, the same system put in India was working. But then when you go a next step further and you start sensing the surrounding around the car, then the scenario completely changes. You cannot have a standard which is set in Europe work in a country like India, especially for driver assistance systems. Driver assistance systems have to be locally adapted. I am also part of the whole exercise which Bindu did when she explained how a cow is seen as a human being with four legs, etc. This is a very common scenario. When did the test runs of some of our systems, we found out that many objects are not being detected in India because the Indian road conditions are different. There are a lot of objects which are not classified by the technology. And how do you achieve this? You can achieve this only by self-learning. So these systems have to start learning. The more and more you penetrate into the market, the more they learn that, okay, this is a cow, this is another animal, this is something else. It has to start learning and then it has to start adapting. And this is not going to be very easy. Let me tell all the viewers on this webinar, this is a very tough effort to do this in India. But this has to be done if we have to go to the next level of safety. So a locally adapted system of driver assistance is the future.
Perfect. A biggest challenge for us.
Yeah.
And also a lot of opportunities for all the young engineers to work with this particular
Absolutely,
technology.
lot of
To put our
opportunity.
innovative brains.
AI, IoT, everything.
MLs.
MLs,
The hot
everything.
cake topics. Okay.
Yeah.
Manika sir, you want to add something?
Yeah, only quick addition from this side, because this is not my subject, but I had what I seen young engineers doing at ARI, particularly our Kewadi road. Similarly, as he says, the artificial intelligence, they started adding it to identify this obstacle is a dog, this obstacle is that. And they said that the program learns over a period of time, and then it identifies it is not a two-scooter, but it is auto rickshaw. It's not two wheels, means not two.
Right.
But I perfectly understand what Rohit is saying. Exactly the same words for people who are working on this mm, driver assistance systems
Perfect.
are saying.
Perfect. And yeah, I think I just have to close with a couple of one or two questions more, because a lot of questions are pouring in as usual. And today, for my imagination, 350 plus participants, you can also read the chats. But all the viewers and the participants, do not worry. All your questions will be answered through the social media channels, or you'll get a personal email. We are going to archive all the questions. Excuse me if I could not uh, give your questions to the panelists, but panelists are always available to take up your questions with this time. So one question related to the NCAP speed. So there's been a big debate that 64 kph offset deformable barrier for India will be too much. 56 kph full frontal crashes for India will be too much. There is a big debate from one side of the community to reduce the speed. And there is another debate coming from the Global NCAP team that if you reduce the test crash speeds, it is going to fail the entire mission. So how is India dealing with? What is the right test speed for Indian driving, Indian crash regulations or crash testing?
Yeah. Now the subject is rested in one way, because all the cars are proven for 56 kmph. So if anybody wants to get any stars, he has to go a little above that. But nonetheless, people had been saying that the mean speeds in India are less, but our on the expressway, and we are finding that the limit of 80 has been moved to 110. So the moment we go up in the highways, there is going to be globally, it is better to align with the global 64. And I believe that going beyond 64 is quite challenging.
Right. So thank you very much. I think I will park all the question answers here at this point of time. So final food for thoughts from Rohit and Manika sir on this particular safety. Thank you very much. You shared a vast amount of expertise. There are various questions which also asked about road safety. Can we park the technology? We are over engineering. If we have to educate the people, we have to enforce the people. Dear participants, please understand one thing: road safety is not going to be solved with only technology itself. It is a combination and the culmination of three main pillars. One is education, infrastructure, and safety awareness. So education, infrastructure, safety awareness, vehicle safety technology is all together put in a pyramid. If you just go to my first topic or a first speech, this all has to be played together. And today we are talking only about one vertical of vehicle technology. If you ask me that I bring in with 20 sensors on my car, and will I avoid an accident? You cannot even think about it if you are an insane driver without wearing a seatbelt, without wearing a helmet, just goes and rams at 80 kph to a speed, and you cannot expect a technology to come in front of you like a god and save you. It's not going to happen, right? We all have to work on exactly on the principles what is available. And you can also see the same thing, 4E, 4 engineering principles, which is engineering, enforcement, education, and also emergency and trauma care. So this, all the four has to work hand in hand. As in the coming weeks, we are going to bring in on the medical perspective how it is going to work. And the next week, we are going to get infrastructure guys, how difficult it is to design a scientific infrastructure roads for the vehicle to play on this road. And vehicle manufacturers give us the top speed of 250, 300 kph, and you do not have a scientific design of a rates, and if you have a wrong banking, your vehicle is just going to fly off, irrespective of which brand you own. So this becomes quite complicated. So dear viewers, it is the combination of all these 5 pillars together, then only you can save an accident. Else it is not going to be possible. I'm pretty sure about it. And from the technology front, we did a justice to all the topics today. And we touched upon new car assessment program, NCAP program, how regulations work, what are the new technologies that's going to come up and other things. So final food for thoughts, Manika sir and Rohit, please give us your feedback on how is the seminar and the series going on. Number two, what is the next technology? What is the next technology that India is going to India is going to see in the next 5 years and the 10 years? And what is your one line of thought for a vision of accident-free driving for India? Over to you.
Hello,
Are
I
you audible,
couldn't hear
sir?
last what.
What is your vision for accident-free India? What do we see as the next 10 years?
I am of the firm opinion that we have to work with the Vision Zero policy. We have to work it in a manner so that we can get the benefit. Vehicle safety, vehicle are getting more and more safer. There is no doubt. But together, if to get a benefit of that, we must work with a policy like a Vision Zero, where we completely work in an ecosystem where the benefit will be transferred of technology, of the regulation to the people, and we will become a safe ecosystem. That's
okay.
On.
Thank you very much, sir. Rohit?
Yeah, from my side, actually, since the audience is a consumer audience, I would like to make an appeal. Don't worry about what technology is there in the car. Don't worry about safety standards. There is an entire gambit of automotive industry working on this aspect. As a consumer, what can you do to improve road safety? That is something that you have to ensure to. Are you wearing your seatbelt when you are sitting in the car? Are you wearing your helmet while riding a bike? Are you buying a car which has at least the necessary safety equipment to save not only yourself but your whole family? Which means, does it have side airbags? Does it have seatbelts at the back? If you can make such small choices while buying a car or while sitting in a car, that itself will make a huge difference. Are you adhering to the rules and regulations of enforcement, 80 km per hour, 120 km per hour, whatever it is? Can you as a consumer try and ensure that you will contribute to road safety? If you can do that, then any amount of technology in the car is sufficient for having a safer road. But you have to come first. That would be my message.
Perfect. Thank you. So final food for thoughts on the webinar series feedback. Manika sir and Rohit, I would like to hear from you.
Great, Giri, it was a pleasure and a great experience to work with this and a simulating environment, and very, I would say that very smartly you put the questions and took best out of the people. And thank you.
Rohit?
I think, as I said initially, this is a very good initiative by IRSC. I would like to compliment the entire team for putting in so much of effort and getting so many stakeholders. I was just looking at the chat box. You have professors from all the parts of India. You have so many different minds who are attending these webinar sessions, that too on a Sunday afternoon when they could have been sitting and watching Netflix. So if they are investing so much of time on road safety and on safety topics, I'm really happy that IRSC is doing such a good job in penetrating this across everyone. And to you, Giri, week and week you come and you moderate these sessions. So great job, and keep going further. Keep engaging with people.
So big hand
thank you.
From our side, big hand to Mr.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm just doing my job of IRSC, just guiding them to put everyone on the board, because since the lockdown, people will forget about safety at all. So what we wanted to do is just link all the people and also see all the known faces and discuss about the topic, keep the topics alive. It's not only for the fraternity who know the things, it's also for the students, young community, and also for the people who want to pick up some leads from the talks, what we do, and get the things away. So that is the whole idea of doing such webinars, sitting at home. And we also see a lot of students who can take up such kind of initiatives and the thought process from this. With this, I would like to sign off on the 7th series of improving vehicle safety standards for India. Thank you very much for Manikar sir. Thank you very much for Rohit Nair just accepting over a phone call for this webinar. And I would like to hand over the mic back to Dipanshu and IRSC. And I would like to place a special thanks to IRSC for giving me this opportunity for hosting this series. See you next week, same time at 4 o'clock with a different subject. Over to Dipanshu. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Sure. Thank you so much, Giri sir. Thank you so much, Manika sir, and thank you so much, Mr. Nair. And we're really grateful to have speakers like you, and definitely the best ever host or moderator we can ever get, our Giri with us. So thanks a lot. We really hope that we were able to answer as many questions as possible for this, because today we got so many questions. And what I'll do is that I'll forward the questions which speakers were not able to answer during the webinar. I'll send it to you, Mr. Nair and sir. So maybe if you can take it later on, or if you can respond to those questions over email, so that will be really helpful for our audience, because they have asked some brilliant questions. So if you can take out some time to answer those questions. And thanks a lot. Many thanks for sparing 2 hours for this session, and especially 1 hour yesterday as well for the demo call. So so thanks a lot for that. And thank you so much everyone for joining us in this webinar. Going forward, we'll see if we can include Hindi as well during the session. And for this session, we'll definitely share the Hindi transcript with you people. And thanks a lot all the professors who have taken out time for this session. And IRSC is an open platform, and we are always looking for people who can join us in our endeavor. So just like be it an expert, be it a student, or be it a professor, anyone who's interested into road safety, interested into any contribution into road safety, is more than welcome to join us. And you can join us. You can write to us on our email ID, which is mentioned here. You can join us on our social media platforms. You can directly write us an email. We'll also share a link of the LinkedIn group with you. We have created a separate LinkedIn group for this Journey to Safety webinar series, when people, those who are joining into these series, are joining the LinkedIn group as well. So in case you are on LinkedIn, so stay tuned, and you should join that group as well. And thanks a lot everyone for joining in. I'll see you in the next session, next Sunday, 4 p.m. sharp. Till then.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye,
Dipanshu.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so much,
Dipanshu.
everyone.
Bye-bye.